I got introduced to her. So Barb Allen is on this call, and she's absolutely amazing. But she runs an event that she does every year, and it's about, talking about, it's called the Great American Syndicate. So you need to follow her because she is absolutely phenomenal. But anyway, she's a Gold Star wife, and I got connected through her, through you guys. Most who Mike Fallett is. He's my book publisher. Awesome connector, awesome guy. So I went down and I saw, went to her event. We sponsored it, and it was great. She had a bunch of amazing speakers, people that I hadn't been exposed to at first. So how I had met her is we had sponsored the event. She was actually speaking on stage, and she had a table there, and she was promoting her book, which is The Greater Fortune. I don't know if you guys have read this, but I just want to read something to you real quick that hit me as I was finishing the book. And really pages 224 through 220 at the very end of the book, actually through 235. Okay. She talks about a couple of key things. One, notes on humility. That was huge. Okay. So she had also quoted a Bible quote: "Do not exalt yourself in the king's presence, and do not claim a place upon his great men. It is better for him to say to you, 'Come here,' than for him to humiliate you before his nobles." So basically, we're not putting ourselves above anybody else in this business. And if you guys know me, being humble is key. So that was one of the things that hit me. But then she talks on page 220. Hold on one second. On 226, she says, "Don't stop loving big." You guys, what have Jay and I always said is that love is everything. Love is everything. So without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest speaker. She is amazing. Marie, are you there?
I am here.
Hi. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. My apologies.
No worries.
So we've been for the last about 20 minutes really been talking, and I was just talking about some of my favorite quotes in the book. While waiting for you to join us. You look ravishing, and it's so good to see you. And I'm so
good to see
honored. Yeah, so honored that you're here. So I've already given them a little bit about your background, but I didn't want to spoil anything about your story and about everything that you've been able to do in your incredible life. So you guys, without further ado, I want to welcome Dr. Marie Cosgrove, author of Greater Fortune, that book that we've been using through our Impact to 100. And so Marie, without further ado, please take it away.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So a little bit about myself. I raised 4 kids single-handedly. I survived domestic violence. I've been divorced twice by the time I was 27. And so, but I did very well in the business world. And what I want to share with you is I want to share with you some tips and some strategies that I used to help me get out of my funk, because I wasn't always a confident woman. I had very low self-esteem. I had gone through domestic violence. And part of my story goes back to even before I was born. Before I was born, my grandparents were on their way to Mexico to a wedding. And on the way over there, they had been driving all night, and then it started to rain and it was thundering. And suddenly my grandfather crashed, and he had been going on a road that was straight. Suddenly there was a sharp curve, and it's known as the Devil's Spine. It's still one of the most dangerous tracks today. So my mother's head was completely crushed. 24 hours passed. Nobody stopped to render any aid whatsoever except to loot the family. So they looted everything, all of their belongings. Finally, 24 hours later, somebody stopped and they took them to the local hospital. At the hospital, the doctors said that it was just sheer luck that she was still alive, because she had severe bleeding in the brain and her head was completely crushed, and that she would probably die any minute. My grandmother was a strong woman of faith, and so she said, "You need to stop the bleeding in the brain now and do surgery." And they said, "We can't do that. You don't understand. There is no surgeon who can do that here. And by the time we bring someone in from another hospital, your daughter will be dead. Even if there was a surgeon who could do the surgery, she would die on the operating table. And if she did survive, she would be a vegetable. So there's just no point. And my grandmother, being a woman of faith, said, no, you're going to bring in a surgeon and you're going to do surgery. So she insisted. They brought in the surgeon and she survived the surgery, but she was in a coma. So several months passed and there was no sign of recovery. So the doctor says, we're going to have to pull the plug because there is absolutely no sign of recovery and there's nothing more that we can do for her. My grandmother, again, being a woman of faith, said, well, we're going to take her to the States. So they transported her to the States. They hired a nurse and brought her over to the States. And I share more details in my book about, all of this that transpired. But they were ready to arrest my grandfather because in those days, if she died, it would have been involuntary manslaughter. And they were ready to arrest my grandfather. And I found the newspaper clippings that talked about how the priest was there ready to give the last rites. But when they brought her to the States, the same thing, she was in a coma for another month. And they said, there's nothing we can do. We're going to have to pull the plug. So my grandmother said, no, just give me one more day. On that night, she prayed all night long and she got all the family members to pray. Well, I interviewed some of the family members for my book and they said that they were ready for the funeral. They just knew that, they're going to pull the plug the next day. Nothing was going to happen. But miraculously, the next day, she opened her eyes and she had to learn how to walk and how to talk and how to do everything all over again. She was in her early 20s at this time. She was able to go home, but she had permanent brain damage. And during her recovery, she was raped. And the rape resulted in a pregnancy. The doctors said, we're going to have to abort because there's no way that this child is going to be born normal. This child's going to have mental difficulties, going to have physical disabilities because she's under so many medications. And she was even going through electric shock treatment at that time. So they knew for a fact that this child was going to be born abnormal. And my mother said, well, God saved my life and I'm not going to take the life that's growing inside of me. The doctor said she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's not all there. She's got brain damage. So they turned to my grandparents and said, you're going to have to sign the paperwork to have this child aborted. And my grandmother says, well, I am going to help take care of this child. The doctor says, you don't understand. You're too old to take care of this child. And on top of that, you can't afford all the medical costs that are going to come with having to take care of this child if the child even makes it full term. And on top of that, think about the shame that's going to come upon the family to have a child out of wedlock and out of rape. So you're bringing a child into poverty, a child that has absolutely zero chance, a child that is going to have every form of physical and mental handicap. We need to abort this child. And so my grandmother, again, being a woman of faith, says, no, whatever happens, I'm just going to help raise this child. So because of my grandmother's faith, they named this child Marie. And that's why I'm here speaking with you today, because of that faith that my grandmother had. Now, I didn't always have that faith. I used to think that I was a mistake. I shouldn't be here. I would listen to the voices in my head that would say, you're just a bastard child. You're worthless. Yeah, not even God wants you. Because I remember having family members that weren't so kind. I had great family members who took care of me and supported me. I didn't see my life as a miracle because even the doctor says they couldn't understand how it was possible. My mom being on 20 different medications, electric shock treatment, because back in those days, for brain damage and traumatic brain injury, that's what they did. They didn't know any better. And I believed the negative voices. I believed the voices that says, you're a bastard child. You're worthless. You don't even know who your dad is. My maiden last name is Longoria. And they would say, you're not a true Longoria because that's your mom's name. And in the States, you carry your dad's name. You don't even know who your dad is. We don't even know who you are. You're just worthless. So I carried that with me, and it began to affect my relationships. That's why I ended up in a domestic violence situation. Dad lost parental rights. That's why I ended up getting married again a second time, someone who was worse than the first and lost parental rights to the one child we had together. So by the time I was 27, I'm raising 4 kids. Both dads lose parental rights, and I'm a total wreck when it comes to my personal life. But in business, I was doing very, very well. And I think I thrived in the business world because I loved to get affirmations. You're doing a great job. I love to succeed. And I wanted to keep my personal life hidden. I didn't want anybody to know about my past, to know what happened to me or where I came from. So I just was very private in business. I stuck to myself. I didn't share about my personal life and what a wreck it was. And I just thrived in it. But in my second marriage, I had to leave a corporate job. It was a Fortune 100 company. I was managing a $600 million marketing budget. And I left that. I left everything to take care of my kids because my kids had been abused in unimaginable ways. And I never wanted anyone to touch them again or to hurt them. So I decided that I was going to get into sales because I thought that that is the only way that I could be able to get myself out of the financial mess that I was in, and that I could create my own income. And that's how I got into medical sales. So I got into medical sales. I did very well. And I share more details in my book, but some of the strategies that I used were having to go back on my successes because nobody wanted to give me a chance. They said, you don't have experience in sales. You can't do this. And I said, I've managed a $600 million marketing budget. You're telling me I can't sell a $30,000 piece of equipment or a piece of equipment that's $150,000? That's nothing. And they just would laugh at my face. And I was just like, no, I know I can succeed because I've done it before. Maybe not in this area, but to me, I looked at it as the same thing. This is sales. I've sold board of directors on how to spend $600 million and how to use that money. That's sales. So I built on my successes. And so a lot of times, every single one of you, every one of you that's listening has had some success in one way or another. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be something small. It's still a success. You may consider it small, but it may not be small to somebody else. Say someone is in dire need of babysitting and you've got these incredible skill sets with kids and you love kids. To them, you're a lifesaver, So you've got skills. And so that's what I did. And I said, yeah, I've got skills. I can do this. And so they gave me an opportunity. And I share more in my book, the details on how I did that and how you can do that as well. And so when I went in, I didn't sell anything for the first 30 days because my grandfather, who helped raise me, was diagnosed with leukemia. I knew I had 30 days, but I didn't know how much time he had left. So I spent the entire time by his bedside. And I had like 1 week left. And they called me and they said, we're canceling your contract. And we're done with you. You don't have a chance. You haven't done anything. I said, no, I've got a week left. And they said, yeah, right. You're not going to be able to sell anything in a week. Well, that week, my grandfather had passed away and we had buried him. And I went and I called on a lot of doctors and everyone shut the door on me. The very last day, this doctor gave me an opportunity, and he had just built some new offices and he had 6 new offices, and I was able to meet my quota for like 2 months because he bought every piece of equipment for me. And when I called the president, I said, hey, I just got a check for $150,000. And he just laughed and he says, yeah, let's see if that check clears. Well, that check cleared. And within a year, I was the #1 national sales representative in that company, in that industry. And I ended up losing that job because they lost their distribution rights. And after they lost their distribution rights, I couldn't go sell for them anymore because I had a contract and it prohibited me from selling directly to the manufacturer. And the manufacturer was trying to recruit me, but I didn't want to get in a lawsuit because I've got 4 kids. Like, I can't do this. So I found a totally different industry to get into, still in healthcare. And I was really passionate about it because it had to do with traumatic brain injury and balance disorders. So I thought, wow, this is right up my alley because of my mother. Now, they didn't know that. So they gave me the same story. You can't do this, and why should we give you a chance? And I built upon my successes. Look, I've done this before and I can do it again. So I quickly became the #1 national sales representative. And I get a call from the VP of marketing, and he says, I want to meet with you because you're doing such a great job. So I'm like, yes, I'm getting a promotion. Maybe I'm going to get a partnership. I was thinking big. And I think it's always good to think big. But we went out to dinner, and I had just closed University of Texas. I had just closed Baylor. I had just closed a big military facility. So I was really excited. And we're having dinner, and he passes over a piece of paper to me, and I look at it, and I was completely deflated because what they were trying to do is they wanted to offer me what I was making on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis as a salary. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. I would just stay with the same financial arrangements we have right now. Because I've got 4 kids. I'm a single parent. I have no one to fall back on. I don't have family. I don't come from money. I have no child support. I have absolutely no one. What they didn't understand was I was traveling with 4 kids and a nanny to make my sales. And I was so passionate about it. And that's the thing, is find out what is your passion. For me, my passion was making sure that I was taking care of my kids financially so that I would never have to rely on anybody. Secondly, it was if I could help someone that was like my mother not have to be on medication and not have to get pharmacological treatment for traumatic brain injury, for brain damage, and to be able to provide maybe indirectly. For me, it was providing these diagnostic devices and treatment devices to neurologists and doctors that took care of patients with traumatic brain injuries. If I could do that for someone, that was my passion. That was like everything to me. So they didn't understand that. And so they said, sorry, this is it. If you say no, you're fired and don't ever come back. In fact, you cannot even go to the training on the sales you just did. And I was devastated because I knew that I couldn't afford to be on a salary and travel with my 4 kids and with a nanny. I just couldn't do it. And I wasn't about to leave my kids with anybody because at this point, I didn't trust anybody to watch my kids after what they had gone through. So I said, I can't take this. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was devastated. There's times in your life where you're going to get just punch in the gut and you don't know what hit you, and it's going to hurt. But for me, I relied on my grandfather's words that said, vengeance is the Lord. And it was so important to forgive. And it was hard. Forgiveness is not easy. Forgiveness is hard. It doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean it's not painful, because it was. So I was sitting at one of my clients' offices, Dr. Martin, him and his wife became very good friends of mine. And I said, I just lost my job and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm just like in tears, I'm crying. And he's like, this is the best day of your life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The best day of my life? That's like crazy talk. I got 4 kids. You don't understand. I have no one to help me take care of my kids. And I don't know how I'm going to continue to pay for, for their healthcare. My son was diagnosed with a autoimmune disease. He wasn't expected to live past 18. Today, he's 28 and he's thriving. I was married and has 3 kids. Truly, truly blessed. But at the time, I had no idea how I was going to handle all of the financial expenses that I had. And it was expensive because there was only one doctor at that time that was treating what he had. It was JDMS. It wasn't very common. And he was in Houston, Texas. So I had to fly over there to get his monthly checkups. And he had physical therapy. 3 times a week. My kids had counseling for post-traumatic stress over the abuse that they had gone through. So I had no idea, but he believed in me, and he didn't give me a handout. He didn't give me money. He didn't give me anything. It was just words of affirmation. And sometimes, for some reason, we tend to gravitate to people who say negative things towards us. Those negative voices in our heads, we tend to listen to those instead of the positive voices. The people that are there cheering you on, that they want to see you succeed. Like Toni, she wants to see everybody succeed. And she's one of those people that she will be your biggest cheerleader. And you need to listen to those voices. Maybe that's the only voice you have in your life that's cheering you on. And that was for me, Dr. Martin. That was the only voice that was cheering me on. Everybody else was, what are you going to do? You've just destroyed your life. I can't believe you rejected that offer. And they didn't understand. Like, I had to, because I couldn't afford to stay with that offer that they had given me. There was just no way. And so you have to listen to those people that believe in you. And sometimes you have to borrow their belief for yourself. So that's what I did. And then I started another company, and I was able to scale it through sales and scale it enough to buy the company that fired me. So one day I received a call. That's right, borrowed belief. Thank you, Antonio. So I received a call, and it was a company that had fired me, and they said, we want you to invest in our company. Would you be interested? I said, well, let me take a look. And they had heard how successful I was with this other company that I had built up. So I went and I looked at the books, and the accountant that was doing the valuation says, take a look at these numbers. And I looked at the numbers. I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And he says, no, you don't understand. That was a year you were doing the sales, and 83% of the sales were yours. And I said, I don't want to invest in the company. I want to buy the company. So after 6 months of negotiations, I was able to buy the company that fired me. Now, a decade later, we are the number one in our industry, in the world. And we've impacted over 1.5 million patients, like my mother, who had traumatic brain injury, who are now, I get calls from doctors and neurologists who call me and will say, well, we had this patient that had MS and was in a wheelchair, and now he's walking. And so what you do, whatever gift that you have, it is powerful, and there's purpose for it. And it doesn't have to be anybody else's gift. So you have a gifting. And what I suggest that you do is you write down a list. What are those gifts? What are those 10 things that you are good at, that you're gifted at? And that's going to help you if you've ever had anything setting you back, maybe something you went through in the past, or something that happened to you, or some setback that you had. It doesn't matter. It's today. That's gone. You're okay now. You're fine now. Where are you today? Where do you want to go? And where you want to go is for you. It was given to you. It was a gift that was given to you, and only to you, and nobody else. And only you have those gifts, and you can use those gifts to help take you to the next level. Does anybody have any questions or anything that you would like for me to share? Thank you, Amy.
So my chats, Marie, are on fire right now. Not just here on Zoom, but I have my WhatsApp chats for our what we're doing is Impact to 100. It's rounding out Q4 and making Q4 no excuses. So everybody in my chat is like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. She needs to be on stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia, for that. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
Well, Marie, if no one has any questions or anything, I so value your time and you taking the time to share your story with us today. It was absolutely wonderful.
Thank
Toni.
you.
Yes, Kristen.
Toni.
Yes.
Hi, I have a question. Just because I am sitting here in my car, because I'm on my lunch hour right now, just in awe of you, Marie. I'm so grateful that you chose to speak with us. But, reading your book, and I would think repeatedly, like, you had bigger challenges than, 100% of people I know, right? And in your darkest moment, like when you were fired and you didn't know what you were going to do and how you were going to support your children and all that, what did you, where did you dig from to just get back on the horse? Like, you had so many opportunities to give up and you just never did. And I'm just so amazed by that. Where did you get that from, or what was it?
It was faith. For me, faith was the biggest thing. Faith, and just buying that faith from my grandmother and realizing that it's going to be okay. And we all have moments where we have setbacks. All of us, I still go through setbacks. We all do. And that's when I turn to just having that faith, that trust that it's going to be okay. What's the worst that can possibly happen? And just, I'm sure we've all heard gratitude. That is key. Gratitude. I remember when I had to leave my second husband to take care of my kids. And I remember just being thankful. You know what? I could have I lost my home. I lost everything. Instead, I was like, thank God we're not getting beat anymore. Thank God we're safe. Thank God that, we're okay. And so just being grateful for what you do have, that is huge. That just changes everything in your day. Like as you go day by day, maybe you didn't make that sale. Maybe the meeting didn't go as planned, but you know what? You're okay. You know what? You're alive today. There's things to be thankful for. You've got your family, you've got your friends, you've got people that believe in you. You got people that Toni, people on your team that support you. So that's what you have to rely on. Rely on those people that support you. Rely on your faith. Just trust. And we all have faith. And maybe you're not a person of faith. Maybe you're thinking, well, you know what? I don't go to church. I don't read my Bible. I'm not a person of faith. Or, whatever. You do have faith, because either you believe that you're going to fail or you believe that you're going to succeed. And that's faith. It takes faith. Faith is a belief system. It takes faith to believe that, everything's going to go crappy. It's going to be horrible today. That takes faith. And you can turn that faith into a reality, which is very sad. That's why it is so important to draw on those people that do have that belief on you, that borrowed belief. And you can begin believing in yourself by being thankful and looking at your past successes, your skill sets. What skill sets do you have that can impact somebody else's life? How can you use those skill sets to help somebody else? And when you start shifting into using your skill sets to help others, everything changes. And so that's what I did. And that's what helped me get through. And that's what helps me get through today when I face challenges.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question or something that you would like to ask Marie? If so, we've got about 2 minutes. Now's your opportunity, you guys. She's one heck of a woman. So if there's anything that you want to ask her about her background, her current successes, please unmute and feel free to ask. Amy?
Toni, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I want to know, Marie, what is next? What's your next big goal?
My next big goal. Well, I do speaking all over, and I want to continue. I speak all over the world. I speak internationally, and I want to continue to do that. I want to continue to impact people. That's, I guess, my big passion. I'm still running my company, Balance Back, and so we're still impacting in healthcare. We just got new FDA clearance on a new product, which is amazing. And so I just want to continue to help people. I don't do it directly, but I do it by providing the diagnostic equipment and treatment equipment for doctors that specialize in traumatic brain injury and balance disorders as well. So I want to continue to do that. That's just my big thing. I continue to learn. I continue to grow every day. I believe that you never stop learning, you never stop growing. So I'll continue to do that. And I just want to continue to impact more lives.
Amy, did
Toni,
you have,
oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
have a question for Marie.
Yes.
I was wondering how you, like, one of your maybe greatest tips on how to organize your day, like between business and family, something that just helps you stay focused on like the priorities and getting the day done, which can sometimes be overwhelming for me. Maybe others go through that too. I'm not sure.
Yes, that's a good question. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So what I do is when I'm with so I have one child left, he's 12 at home, the rest are grown. What I do is when I'm with my family, I focus on my family. And I didn't used to always do this. I think the pivotal moment for me, I remember I was in New York with my kids and I was on a business trip, and I'm always with my kids, I pay attention to them, but my kids were recording that day, and the little one at that time was like 3 years old, jumping on the bed and just chaos everywhere. And I tuned them out. I was on my computer trying to do a quote for a doctor, and I needed to close this sale. So I'm getting these quotes out. I'm doing my work, just ignoring everything that's going on. And then we got home, my kids played that video and I was in tears. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like chaos. I'm not even there. I'm there, but I'm not there. And then I decided, you know what? I need to be present. When I'm with my family, I'm with my family. I shut the phone. And if I have to do something, I'll tell them, you know what? I love you. I want to pay attention to you, but I need to take care of this. So I tell them, and they understand that. And so when I'm at work, the same thing. I tell my kids, you know, I'm working. You can't call me while I'm at work. I need to get this done unless it's an emergency, of course. So I focus on where I am. And you can't always, I try to plan out my day, but it doesn't always turn out that way. I mean, you get interruptions. I had interruptions today and things happen, and that's okay. But when you are in your moment, you're in your moment. So try not to get distracted by other things. So try to, you know, if you're with family, be with family.
Awesome. Marie, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to speak to, you know, some of our amazing folks out there. And I cannot wait to share this with our world. And also too, I did put it in the chat. As soon as my videographer gets done editing this, I am sending this clip to our president, because you have to tell your story. You have to tell your story on our conference stage. You need to. I mean, it is just so impactful and wonderful. And I can't wait to see you next week.
Can't wait to see you. Excited to see you. Thank you all. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, all of you, for joining. I so enjoyed being with all of you. Thank you, Toni. You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys have a great kickoff to Rocktober, as I call it. And I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.